Renee had spent weeks planning her son's 18th birthday. She hung streamers across the backyard herself, ordered his favorite chocolate cake, filled coolers with drinks, checked every chair, every table, every tiny detail a mother notices because mothers notice everything. By sunset, the yard was alive with music and laughter. Her son, Ethan, stood in the center of it all, wearing a paper birthday crown, smiling like he owned the world. Renee watched him from across the yard and smiled too, because for 18 years, she had built her life around moments like this. She remembered holding him through fevers, working late shifts so he could have school trips, skipping vacations so his college account could grow. Every sacrifice had felt worth it, until Ethan raised his voice. "My stepmom bought me a car," he said proudly. His friends cheered. Then he laughed. "My real mom never really did much for me anyway." Silence. Not complete silence, but that uncomfortable kind. The kind where people suddenly find their drinks interesting. The kind where eyes avoid eyes. Renee stood frozen. She kept smiling. Not because she wanted to, because sometimes heartbreak happens so suddenly your face forgets how to react. She looked at her son, the same boy whose scraped knees she cleaned, the same boy who once slept on her chest during thunderstorms. And for one painful moment, she felt invisible. She didn't argue, didn't defend herself, didn't create a scene. She simply walked away, past the balloons, past the birthday decorations, past the life she'd spent years building. Nobody followed. That night, Renee sat alone at her kitchen table. No television, no music, just silence. People often think pain arrives loudly, but sometimes it arrives quietly. Sometimes it sits beside you at a kitchen table and asks one simple question: how much of yourself have you given away? By morning, Renee had her answer. For years, she had loved Ethan unconditionally. But somewhere along the way, love had become obligation, sacrifice had become expectation, and expectation had quietly become entitlement. So for the first time in years, she chose herself, not out of anger, out of clarity. She reviewed the accounts she'd built over years of overtime shifts and careful budgeting. The savings she'd worked hard to create for Ethan's future would remain protected until healthier boundaries and mutual respect existed. She also reviewed financial commitments connected to her name, not as punishment, as responsibility, because support without appreciation eventually becomes something else. And Renee realized something painful. Love should lift people, not disappear beneath them. The next afternoon, Ethan showed up at her house. His eyes were swollen, his hair was a mess. The confidence from yesterday had vanished. "Mom," he said quietly. Renee looked up. "What happened?" she asked. He stared at her. "The college account," he whispered, "and the car situation." His voice cracked. "What did you do?" Renee set down her coffee. She looked at her son carefully. Not with anger, not even disappointment, just honesty. "I stopped pretending everything was okay." He stared at her, confused, hurt. "But why?" Renee's eyes softened. Because despite everything, this was still her child. "You stood in front of everyone," she said gently, "and made me feel like I never mattered." Ethan looked down immediately. "It was just a joke." "No." Her voice stayed calm. "It wasn't. It was a moment where you forgot something important." He looked up. "What?" Renee took a long breath. "You forgot who stood beside you when nobody else did." The room became quiet. Not angry quiet. Thinking quiet. The kind of silence where truth starts settling into places excuses used to live. Ethan sat down slowly. For the first time in years, he looked younger, not 18, just lost. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he whispered, and Renee believed him, because people don't always intend to hurt the ones they love. Sometimes they simply stop seeing them, stop noticing effort, stop noticing sacrifice, stop noticing the person carrying them, until suddenly, that person puts the weight down. Over the next few weeks, things changed. Not dramatically. No emotional speeches, no movie-style endings, just small things. Ethan got a part-time job. He started asking questions, real questions, questions he'd never asked before. "How many hours did you work? How long did you save for college? Were things hard?" Renee answered honestly. Sometimes Ethan sat quietly afterward. Sometimes he cried, because for the first time, he wasn't seeing his mother as just mom. He was seeing Renee, a woman, a person, someone with dreams, exhaustion, fears, and limits. Someone who had given so much that she'd almost disappeared. Months passed. Slowly, conversations replaced arguments. Respect replaced assumptions. One evening, Ethan came home carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to her awkwardly. "I got your favorite." Renee smiled. "Thanks." They sat on the porch together, watching the sunset, watching cars pass, watching time move quietly forward. Then Ethan spoke. "You know what scares me?" Renee looked over. "What?" He stared ahead. "I think I spent years loving you." He swallowed hard. "Without appreciating you." Renee felt tears fill her eyes, because sometimes the words we wait years to hear arrive softly, not with fireworks, not with music, just truth. "I'm sorry," Ethan whispered. Renee looked at him, really looked at him, not at the mistakes, not at the birthday, not at the pain, at her son, the little boy who once held her hand crossing streets, the teenager who lost his way, the young man trying to find it again. She squeezed his hand. "I know." He looked at her carefully. "Can you forgive me?" Renee smiled through tears. "Forgiveness isn't the hard part." He frowned. "Then what is?" She looked toward the fading sunlight. "Learning." Because forgiveness happens in a moment. Growth happens over time. A year later, Ethan left for college. Not with entitlement, not expecting life to hand him things, but with gratitude. On move-in day, he hugged his mother tightly, longer than usual. Then he handed her a folded note. Renee waited until he walked away before opening it. Inside, written in shaky handwriting, were just a few words. "You gave me everything. Thank you for teaching me that love isn't something to take for granted. I'll make you proud." Renee smiled, because in the end, this story was never about money, never about cars, never about punishment. It was about something bigger. It was about boundaries, about respect, about remembering the people who quietly hold us together. And sometimes, the greatest gift a parent can give isn't protection. It's a lesson, even when it hurts. Because love doesn't mean shielding someone from every consequence. Sometimes love means stepping back long enough for them to see clearly. And sometimes the people we think we're losing are simply finding their way back home.